Welcome to Nonprofit Network, powered by Stokes Auction Group. We are a group of fundraising professionals that specialize in raising funds to improve communities of all sizes. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Nonprofit Network. My name is Shelby Stokes.
Kelly Schenfeld.
Yo, gang. Polly Schenfeld here. Good afternoon, fellow fundraiser fanatics.
Fellow fundraiser, that's just fun to say.
Damn, it's cold outside.
I know. I got goosebumps. I thought I'd better.
I'm wearing a jacket. I am not above being warm.
Super chilly.
It looks really comfy, though, that puffy coat.
It is. I have to get another one because they're kind of cheap, to be honest with you, because they sprout.
The sprout?
They sprout. All of a sudden, you're walking and you see goose feathers come out.
Oh, the little goose feathers come out.
Yeah, so I currently have a piece of black tape. Can't really see it.
Oh, no, that's fashion right there.
Oh, yeah.
That is fashion.
Oh, that was a masterful job right there.
Thank you.
At its finest. Yeah. Fashion at its finest. Hello, welcome. We're going to discuss a few things tonight.
It's actually daytime.
It is daytime. You can see the sunset behind us, Avi. Summer is over, fall is here, and the fall fundraising season is upon us. And boy, has it been a good one thus far, and it'll continue to do so. But what I want to talk about today is like the styles and type of auctioneers that you might see in different fundraising events. Our group comes from a very traditional auctioneer background, right? And I think the situation that I found myself in this weekend is we literally had like 35 items, which is a lot.
It's a lot.
And I think
but it used to be the norm.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. 45.
45. That's 7.5 hours. Everybody's half dead by the time you leave.
And then on top of that, we also like doubled every 2.25 item, it felt like. So, I mean, we were constantly like, who wants 2? Who wants 3? How about we do 4?
Priceless once in a lifetime, but we have 4.
So, like, I want to talk about a little bit about like the styles of auctioneering based on your timeline. And I worked with Michael Youngers, shout out to Mike, and so good. And he had a lot of lifting to do with like 35 items and all of those doubles and a fund and need presentation. We had to keep a really good.
Was he your MC?
He was our auctioneer.
He was the MC. So
I
was
the MC.
I was going to just say, but Shelby kept the move. Your MC keeps you rolling, right? I mean, they either flatten you out or they roll you along.
Yeah, and I did just that. You know, in the beginning I added some humor and didn't seem like it really worked, so just continued to say the course.
I think you're funny.
Well, I mean, you know.
I think you're funny, too.
We think you're funny.
We think you're funny. We promise. I'm not being forced to say anything.
No, we're not.
But I mean, like, long story short, like, I really got to thinking about, like, okay, I saw Michael, but he had, like, a very quick chant. And I started to like think about that more and more. And I think it was necessary to carry the energy and timeline forward.
Yeah.
And I think that like there are other people that don't have the traditional auction background that don't have that tool in their tool bag, if you will.
Talk about traditional though. So explain to them what traditional auction background is, the style.
Traditional would be like a very, like an auction chant.
Car, cattle.
And by auction
estate.
chant, it's, 2 3 300, 400, who go 4 5 is been 6, 7 7. That ba.
25 and 130 to 35 and a bid 40 to 45, bid it here to $50,000 bid.
Yeah. And mine would be 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000. Oh my gosh, $14,000!
You're going to auction school. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, you should.
But like those bidda that we're using are used to kind of maintain momentum through the course of a night. So when we talk about the traditional auction method, we essentially talk about, okay, you're trying to liquidate a whole house full of items or a whole warehouse full of items, and you need to keep a quick pace throughout the course of the night. And in doing so, you maintain that pitter-patter because you're basically training your audience to bid and buy items in a quicker fashion.
Right, and they feel like they have to bid quicker, they're going to miss it.
Creates that sense of urgency, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
When you have somebody rattling off like that, it's like, and you got 35 items.
Right.
And I'm sure you probably teed it up. Hey, folks, we got 35 items. We're going to get rolling, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for the most part. You know, in the beginning, I gave it a little bit more commercial, but then by the end, it was like, you get a week to Suncadia, it sleeps 3. Thank you to the Johnson family. You know, like it was like boom, boom, boom. And
It's got a toilet, it's got a sink, it's got a bed. And Michael, take it away.
Sleeps 4. Go, Mike.
yeah, and Mike did such a good job. I just thought he played the line between like entertainer focused auctioneer and like speed, that it really came together in a very impressive fashion for me. Now, more often than not, we're not seeing those 35 item auctions anymore.
Right,
you
and
know?
actually push people towards not having those.
Right, yeah. I mean, it is more of the 10, 15 item auctions is normally what we're seeing. And that allows for a little bit more playfulness and joking and ha-ha and less of the auction chant. So I guess, like, do you have any thoughts to add in regards to, like, managing timeline and how the chant serves the movement through the timeline?
You know, one thing I wanted to talk about today is kind of ties in with it, and that's why you wanted to go first.
That's why I want to go first, exactly, yeah.
Is that it's all about guest experience. You know, the most important thing, the Ivan is down, so we're going to go correct that. Just one moment, please.
I think the scooter went down.
The scooter's down. We're all good. Just a small little break here. But I think it's really important that your audience experience is the number one thing that you remember when you're putting your auction together, when you show up as the auctioneer, when you show up as the ringman, when you show up as the MC. If you keep in your mind the most important part of every single gala is for those people to leave having had an incredible experience, right? And that's why that quicker bid call for those 35 item pieces, because you know a lot of people haven't heard that. So that's an important thing. And with the smaller auction, you have more playtime with your guests. So I just think that it's important to focus on the most important part of any gala, and that is the guest leaving there saying, oh my God, you got to go next year. You missed a great show, you know, and that's what I think.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Awesome. Good. Paul, do you remember the question I asked? Because I don't.
Yep. Well, the last event I did was 26 items. And I've been doing this in my 14th year or 15th year doing it. They've heard everything I got. They've heard all my stuff. They've heard my chant. They've heard my jokes. So what I do here, and I have like one of the best MCs in Jake Wettenberg.
Oh yeah, he's great.
And his opening, by the way, was like the best I've ever heard. And I told him, I said, dude,
wow.
you nailed it. But I try to mix those two things together.
Yeah.
I try to mix the 25 and a 30 and a 35 and a here to sold. And then when we have an item that takes a little bit more time, I'll stop doing that. Say, Jake, you know, we need to talk about this a little bit more. This is Puerto Vallarta, dude.
Yeah.
Go. And then come in. Okay, I got 2,500 here. He'll give me 27 and a half. Got it. No vacation for you. Okay, got it. And then slowly roll into it again. 32, 50.
Right.
Here to 5. Now 4. And I'll try to mix it up. So I'm thinking in my head, it's like, God, they've heard it all. It's got to be boring.
I think, too, that it's important to remember when you're putting your auction together, or if you're an auctioneer that serves that night, that the demographic is obviously displayed when you have more items. You know, your items aren't going to be selling for $3, $4, $5 grand once you have 35 items. We're talking 1,200, 1,500, $2,000 is a top dollar item, because, you know, they've got 35 packages. And you had 350 people.
Right.
Do the math. That's a lot of items. Plus, did you have a silent?
We did, yeah, quite a lengthy silence.
So that is too much saturation, to be honest with you. So it places on you guys, the auctioneers and the MCs, and all of us. It places on all of us the stress. Of these items possibly not going for what people that donate them think they might go for. Well, you can't wear a group out, man. You just can't wear them out.
Yeah, and I think that the event that we helped was in a unique scenario because it's been traditionally one organization, and now it's benefiting another organization. So they have combined their galas into one.
Yeah.
And that has bloated the offering of items, right? Because you have two completely separate auctions that are now becoming one. Therefore, their items potential is doubling.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
yeah. You know, as like the presenter or MC of that event specifically, what I was really focused on was timeline, right?
Yeah.
Like I knew that I need to be done before 10 o'clock.
Oh God, and that's such a late timeline.
It is a late timeline, but you know, like they hung with us, they stayed with us. We walked off the stage at like 9:30, 9:45ish. But in order to get there by 9:45, you really have to be intelligent with the way you're spending your time early.
Yeah.
Right? And I've always been a huge fan of connecting with that audience early and then speeding it up in the backside.
Yeah.
Because you have that rapport, because you have that back and forth, okay, now it's time to put the items on the money and run. And I think that Mike just did a masterful job. You know, in the room that we were in, it was very hard to get down on the floor and connect with guests.
Sure.
Which also inherently causes your auctioneer to speed up.
Yep.
Because they can't get down and actually sell the items and look them in the eye and see that one-to-one reaction. You can see it from a distance and use that to your best of your ability, but the closer you can get to these people, the more engaged you can be with them.
Right.
So when you don't have the luxury of engaging with them, you inherently get a faster timeline at the same time.
Yeah. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. If you don't have time to, if you
No.
don't have time to get off
Ooh,
stage
it's touching my
and
knee.
go out there and say, hey, sir, and do the whole thing and poke and prod a little bit, you don't have that ability,
Yeah.
you're taking away 45 seconds out of all these items.
Yeah.
Yeah, and correct me if you don't agree with this, obviously, or try not to correct me. It really does. I do feed you
Challenge
boys.
you.
I do, but
Challenge,
challenge
yes.
me. I think that when you're putting together your auction, really be mindful not to go over 20 items, and that's still a strong auction, you know, because what it does is it does allow your auctioneer and your MC to have fun with their audience, and it does let them have memories, you know, as opposed to item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. You know, you get lost.
Back in the day with the Catholic schools were
That-
50, 60
50,
items.
60.
And we were just flat running as fast as we could go.
What's the
Yeah.
biggest one you've done? Can you remember? I do.
Boy, I think I want to say like 65.
We had a 66 item auction.
Oh, I
Is
got you
that
both
right?
beat.
Do
Is
you
that
know?
right?
With doubles.
Well, I'm adding in the dessert frenzy and
That's
the
not-
sport
that's-
frenzy.
Oh, yeah.
All
well,
12 of each.
I know. God.
80.
God.
80.
80.
Wow.
3 frenzies. Sell the desserts.
They're serving breakfast after item 60.
And I think like partly what I was thinking when I was driving back was like, wow, we really had a quick pace tonight. I could almost critique it as too quick.
Sure.
But we're trying
No
to
choice.
manage time and we don't have choice. And I think that when you look at like a fundraising professional that's doing this for a living or as their full-time work, you can see there's people in the market that aren't traditional auctioneers,
Sure.
that are radio, television solely backgrounds. And I think that they not having that tool in their toolkit, which is the auction chant, does not allow them to move as quickly as they could,
I would agree.
as effortlessly as they can. And that's not to say what they're doing is a bad job, because there's a
No.
lot of people out there that are doing a lot of good for a lot of people, and we want to encourage that.
Yeah.
But when you are in the situation where you walk into a room and you're like, oh, he's a traditional auctioneer, he doesn't have the flavor, I don't think that's a fair assessment.
Nope.
You know what I mean? I think you are using and you become a different performer based on the needs of the room. And part of the reason this crossed my mind was because I played MC this weekend, and I really enjoyed doing it, but it was a different role for me.
Yeah.
And there was part of me that was just like, I want to get in there. Like that's home. I want to get home, you know? And it was good for me to kind of just take a step back and know that my purpose was to support this team and support this auctioneer. And I enjoyed it far greater than I thought I was going to. I was nervous because and I was nervous because I didn't have the chant to hide behind if I got into trouble.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I can relate to
Yeah,
that.
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like
I haven't done
yeah.
that. Obviously,
Yes.
I'm not an auctioneer. It's, to be honest with you, it's not something I have any desire to do either. You know, it just
Yeah.
it's not it. I enjoy, because I don't think the auctioneer has the same benefit. I get to go out and, oh my gosh, you're gonna let that guy over there? Are you kidding me? Don't let him
you're right,
get
Kelly,
that
I'll
guy. Yeah. So I love that part of it, you know, and I also love I am spoiled. I won't lie about that. I am spoiled. I have only a handful of auctioneers that I would ever work with. You two, I haven't done in a while, but I would love it. I love working with you. I love working with you, but I adore working with my husband because we work seamlessly. But all of that being said, that there really is a spot for that auctioneer that doesn't have the chant. It's that big gala, 6-item, 10-item, name dropping kind of group of people, that want to have a news radio guy or a TV guy,
Right.
or somebody famous in that spot, and they don't need to have that chant. All that being said, that chant gets more money because it gets that, it gets that
Creates that
going, and
sense
it
of
does. It
urgency.
creates that, and then people are like, "Oh my God, do you guys hear that? That's so amazing!" And if we're gonna call it an auction, which is what it is, when we come to that point, these men and women work on a craft, and it truly is a craft, and they get better with time. If they're not feeling well, they're not as good, and they know it, and it is a really very, very small group of people
Yeah,
that have the ability to do that.
And I would say, the traditional auction was always something I tried to stay away from early in my fundraising career because it felt like it was cheap. It felt like a one-trick pony there for a while.
I think it's beautiful.
You know what I mean? It felt like, okay, this is going to work for the first 2 items, and then I'm going to need to come out of that chant and entertain, which is probably like what I enjoy is really the entertaining aspect. But I think it's a tool in the toolbox.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? And then when you get to a point where, okay, we're done with Fun and Need, we've taken all the money out of the room, now we need to fly. Now we can get into a rhythm and have people bounce along and feel like it's going faster than maybe it actually is.
Do you guys suggest that they keep an item back that's a real bell ringer until after the fund and need to keep people in their seats?
That's super funny that you bring that up because
I think it's so important.
Yeah, because I sequenced this event that I did, and normally I lean on my team to do that. I trust my team, and they normally sequence those items, and I help and give them the final pass. But I actually got in the trenches and built this entire list of 35 items, and I did exactly that. I held probably 3 pretty good items that I thought were good, and I would say that 75% of them did what they should. And the ones that did sputter were community related. And I don't know if that's because it was late in the night or because the person that donated it was not as well loved.
Yeah.
I can't tell what that is.
Sure.
Oh,
But
right.
I did feel like maybe one or two of those items had more potential than the
But that
other.
does go back to if somebody that's watching this is putting together a event, try to get back to 20 items. It's way easier on the fly to bring something that's doing really well. You got a good team. You go to your ringman and you say, hey, this thing is taking off in the silent auction. It's like up at $5,000. Do you think we could put that in the live? Way easier to do that, to add your MC. You just hand you got a seasoned ringman. They just hand a note to the MC and you tell the auctioneer you're selling something different next year. We're going to sell this. Let your MC handle it. Just know that we're off script right now.
Yeah.
And then you go and you tell them we're back on script, I've done that to Mark. I can't tell you how many times. It's
Well,
like,
I think,
what?
you touched on something earlier about guest experience, and I kind of want to piggyback on that. When you're talking specifically about a 35-item auction, you're going to put Fund and Need at what, 25?
Yeah, which is
28?
late, right?
I think ours landed at 22 and it felt too early.
And it felt too early.
Well,
Okay, so-
when I was sequencing, it felt too early, but I felt like it had to be about there in order to keep people in the seats. I was afraid of people leaving.
Absolutely.
Right. Now, I was just going to allude to that very thing because the last thing that goes on at these events are what people are going to remember. And that goes back to guest experience.
Yep.
If you put your Fund and Need at item 24, 28-ish, and then you're running late because you cost yourself time in the beginning, now you're running late. People are standing up. They're starting to leave. They're starting to check out. When you sell the last item, good night, folks. Thank you. Appreciate you coming here. Some people might walk away going, man, it's 10:20. that's a negative
It is a
feeling.
negative.
That's what we don't want.
And they're leaving it 10-20 considering that they had express checkout.
Right.
If they bought something in the silent and they don't have express checkout, and it can be an absolute nightmare. And I saw this saying the other day, you can do 100 good things for a community, and they will only remember the one negative. And that is human nature.
It is.
Yeah.
You could have had 10 great auctions that went and then you have one and it wore people out and your room was empty, and that's what they're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So remember that.
And I
Remember
think,
that.
like,
Don't give them anything to talk about.
I mean, this all comes back to time management, right? And some of those examples were how one of our presenters would respond on the fly in that moment. I've done 2 events in the last 2 weeks, which I'm very happy to be doing. But one of them was 8 items, and it felt long, and the other one was 35, and it didn't feel long in the moment.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how so much of the interlocking pieces and sticking to a timeline can help you really project the energy in the room. And I think it's really essential to try to stay on those timelines that you propose, because if you go off track, you can lose time for naught back in the back half of the event. You don't want to get to your fun need at the end of the night and have 2/3 of the room there, which is what happened 2 weeks ago.
What would you
my
think?
gosh.
Yeah, what would you
Devastating.
Yeah.
what
Done.
would you think about putting at everybody's table just a small piece of paper and a small pencil that says, did you like how many items we had? Did you think it was too long? Did you think it was too short? Just a quick little questionnaire, right?
Little survey.
A little survey. And if 10 people fill it out of 300, you got 10 people that gave you input for the following year.
Yeah, you could also add that into your final payment as well. If you're sending
Yeah.
out receipts, maybe click through a link and fill out a survey. I think it's a really good idea.
It could be
I
a
do.
great idea.
And
I am smart.
And to all of those like
Always
nonprofit
told you that.
individuals out there that are in those boardroom meetings, I understand how difficult it is to keep that number of items down. I get it. And it's a hard thing to push through at some of your board meetings because you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You want to respect everybody. But ultimately, if you look at that lineup of items and you see you're selling $200 or $300 packages and you're using live moments to do that, that could be a poor use of your time together in a
Yes.
ballroom. That should be in a silent auction. That should be offered in a different manner than it would be compared to a live auction item. So really, really try to take some thought. And remember, you're trying to do what's best for the entire event, not just making Bill feel good about his boat that has a rusted bottom. You want to make the whole room feel good and take that energy and build on that momentum in the future. So I understand it's easier said than done, but it's going to prove dividends.
It's a
if you
whole
do
nother
it.
episode. It's procurement.
Procurement, we got to
It's
readdress
procurement,
that again.
right?
Yeah, you can never talk about
Sometimes
that
you've
too
got
much.
to say no.
Yeah.
You do.
If Sally demands that this $200 quilt that she made 6 years ago, if she not, I demand that you put it in the live auction. And she's somebody that puts those leadership in a very, very tough situation.
That's where the leadership
That's
then.
where you gotta.
Yeah.
Sally, we love you, but we'll give you a super silent. It'll be open longer than anything else. I'll have the auctioneer talk about it until he's blue in the face. But no, we're not going to waste 4 minutes selling this
Yeah.
quilt when we
Yeah.
got $5,000-6,000 items and you want to sell one for $400 or $500.
Yeah.
Could you do that quilt on a yacht?
On a yacht? Could you do
Or,
quilt making on a yacht?
again, and this is a whole other episode, but grab those $200 and $300 pieces. If it's a boat ride with Billy and it's a quilt and it's an apple pie, boom, that is a $2,000 item all of a sudden, because
Yeah.
you're going to wrap up in Aunt Sally's quilt, you're going to eat pie, and you're going to float on the boat. So,
Go on that Sally's boat.
bring them
That's a
in.
great
You
idea.
can wrap your baby in a quilt.
Wrap that baby in a quilt.
We'll wrap that baby up in a quilt. We'll
And
go
our
real
boat
fast on
has
speed.
parachutes.
Nice. Parasailing.
No, yeah.
No
No life jackets,
Did
parachutes.
you have a question
I
that you
look
brought,
like
or
I
did
do.
we already?
No, my
cover
only
it?
question, my thought for today was to talk about the most important thing of the auction, and I personally believe that it is guest experience, because
I would agree.
that's who we are there to. We're asking.
Yeah.
We're asking them all night long. From the second they walk in, we're asking them for a raffle ticket. We are asking them to buy a silent item. We're asking them to sit down and we're feeding them dinner, but we're asking. And then we're asking them to give us straight funds, and we're asking them to buy that quilt, yacht, and pie. So I think that the idea of a survey, one way or another,
Yeah.
is probably, we're at that point in the business now, because there's so many of them that have done so much of it, and there's such a turnover with staff that it's not bad to talk to the people that are coming there and dropping the dough.
Yeah, we're kind of dealing with that, right? Like in terms of guest experience and what they want. We spent an episode a couple episodes ago talking about whether we pressure guests to give.
Yeah.
And I think that expectation from your guests will change based on environment
Yep.
and based on history with the event, right? Where we were this weekend, we had 35 items, but they've always done 30 items. So why would they stop if their guests are still having a good time and still support? So it's hard to break it if it's working.
But they don't know if it's working because they haven't taken a survey.
We also don't know if they haven't taken the survey.
We don't. We don't. That's what I'm saying.
I did not get a survey. So
I did not.
Yeah.
I wasn't invited, but I didn't get a survey.
Nobody asked me to fill anything out.
Ah, and you're gonna get that. I already gave them money. I'm not gonna fill anything out. This is stupid.
Paul, do you have anything on guest experience you want to add?
Well, I think your most important aspect of a fundraising auction is guest experience.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree. Absolutely, it's what people are going to remember when they first show up,
Yep.
and it's going to be what they remember when they leave. I think as you dive deep into a fundraising event, I think for me it's audience development. I think you had to get the right butts in the room.
You do. Right,
And
butts in the
ever be
seats.
churning.
I mean, it's a very broad
Ever be
thing to
churning
say without
sponsors.
diving
Yeah.
into
Agreed.
it more, but getting the right people in the room, I think, is equally as important as
Yeah,
guest
and they're kind of the same thing, really, if you think about it.
Mhm.
It's just so hard to not know the right move when
So-
you're in the middle of it and you're the board and you've got all these things being thrown at you and you don't know, and then you start filling the seats with people that aren't there to spend money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's better to have fewer people and fewer items and raise more money.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of my response to the guest experience aspect, Ketcha was on last week, and she called me on Saturday, and she was going into a new event that she hadn't done before, and it was an art auction, and basically, yeah, and they
Those
had
are so fun.
8 items, art auction at an art. What do you call it? House at a
Studio?
studio. Thank you.
Yeah, studio.
And I basically told her it's not about the chant or the monies you raise on those pictures. It's about connecting with the people in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And the people in that room have art and a passion for art in common. So make that your essence. Make it focused on what they're focused on. You'll be able to band them together and then unite under a common goal, which is raising funds for the artists. And I think that goes back to the guest experience and how that can change from person to person. What is that art gallery looking for in terms of putting together an event? It's probably not to raise funds. Funds are great, but I'm guessing that what they want to do is unite the community, and from that uniting of the community, the funds will come. And I think that that's really what we have to look at with every one of these guest experiences. What brings them together, what keeps them there, and what allows them to give the most of their ability. And we're constantly fascinated on how best to do that. And I think the fun part of what we do is that target is ever changing and will continue to change.
Boy, isn't that the truth?
Yeah, great advice, dude. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And artists are also about lifting each other up, right? And they want to hear their name and they want their art known and seen and done. Mark and I don't do many.
Well, I mean, it's
We're not very good at it.
We could do a whole episode on art. Yeah, we really
Oh, boy.
could. But what it comes down
Oh,
to
boy.
is art is in the eye of the beholder. And another thing that I'd shared with Ketcha before we wrap is you can't tie your self-worth to what the items bring.
Oh,
And I
gosh,
think
no.
so often in this auction industry, you see people that come and they're like, I raised X amount of dollars last night and I'm awesome. And they're inherently tying their accomplishment to what those dollars bring. And what I tried to put forth in her mind is just like, it doesn't matter what it brings. It matters how you make them feel. And that's true in all walks of life, in my opinion.
Yeah, Betty's bought a lot of art in our history.
Well, you know what? You have a beautiful space decorated with many eclectic pieces of
Betty
art.
loves art.
Betty loves.
Oh, Betty loves art.
She does. She's a great,
She
Well,
great
bids on
art.
every art piece
She's a
we
great
ever.
art
Yes,
She is.
purchaser.
I love
Yes.
Betty.
I
Well,
do
guys,
too.
we are gonna wrap. That was a pretty good session. We went a little bit longer than we have in the last couple of weeks, but
How
I felt
long?
like it was good. I think that was about 30 minutes. So there you go. Hopefully, you got
Good.
something out of it.
Dang, we're good.
This is what this is what sparks us. This is what gets us excited, is having these conversations about fundraising and guest experience and how best to support and lift up community. So we appreciate you guys being a part of this episode and listening wherever you are. If we can provide any value to you, feel free to reach out or drop us a sub or a follow.
Do us a
and we
favor
greatly
too.
appreciate it.
Yeah, and follow us on Facebook as well as go to our YouTube page and subscribe. It would mean the world to us. You know, we do this because we enjoy time with each other. We do, but we love our auctioneers. We love our ringmen. We love our back of the house people. We love our guests. We love our organizations. So go on there, like us. Let us know that you saw us, and I hope you got something out of it.
We're just trying to spread the word about fundraising.
Yes.
We just like to talk fundraising.
Spread the love
the word.
about
Hey, you guys.
raising
We love us
money.
some live events.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this afternoon. Take care, gang.
That's right. Be good.
Take care, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.